Hi everyone, welcome to the weekly home down payment account review. Balance on the account is $103,400. The next target amount for this account, as we see here, is $110,000, and I am 94% towards that goal. This will probably be I was going to say the last target amount on this account, since I plan to kick off the process in June, but I'm not 100% sure because I don't know if once I start the process in June, if I should just stop the weekly home down payment review, just given that I might be pulling money from this account for like inspections and whatever else that goes into a home buying process. I'm a first time home buyer, so I'm not 100% sure. And then just start documenting the process, or we'll see. I'm thinking my gut is telling me that I will probably stop providing these updates again, because if I'm going to be pulling from this account, it's not really a savings goal anymore. And now it's like, okay, you've saved, now you're actually using this money to accomplish the goal that you set out to get, which is to buy a property or a co-op in New York City. So let me just think more on that, and I will definitely update you all on what I decide. Okay, let's look at the deposits for the last week. So starting on March 11th, I deposited $113.17. Then that same day, I deposited another $100. And that same day, I deposited another $50, as well as another $26.83. Then on March 15th, I put in $1,500. That's because that was a payday, so I'm able to make larger deposits on paydays. Then on the 16th, the next day, I put in $200. And then on the 17th, I put in another $100. So for this past week, I put in $2,110. I am more aggressively putting money into this goal, just given the timeline of wanting to buy this year. I wish I could put in even more money, just because I, again, live in New York City and it's so expensive here. So I think probably for 95% of the rest of the United States, this might seem like a very high down payment balance. But unfortunately, in New York City, it's not. About 75% of New York City real estate is actually made up of co-ops, which are apartment style buildings, and you get to buy shares within that building. So it's not considered real property per se. You're just buying shares in the building. So it's similar to buying stock of a company. So you buy Apple stocks. You don't actually own Apple, right? You just own the amount of shares of stock of Apple that you bought. So you do own those shares, right? Like they're yours. No one can come and like take them from you because you paid for it. So it's the same thing here. So in a co-op building, there will be different apartments, and I would choose an apartment that's up for sale. It would be my apartment, but instead of getting like a property certificate, I would get a share certificate that would align with the square footage of the apartment that I am buying. But I don't actually own that apartment. I don't own that apartment property. I own the shares that's allocated to the square footage of the apartment that I'm buying. I know it gets a little bit confusing, and I was a little bit confused about it as well because co-op is something that's very unique to New York City. I think it's in a couple other, it might be in San Francisco as well, maybe Seattle. Don't quote me on it, but it's not a concept that's widely available throughout the United States. But this was an initiative to help cities that are extremely expensive, like New York City, for the housing market to just be more affordable to residents. So the co-ops, they are lower price than, let's say, a condo or a single family home, but there's a big but. And you're seeing this here with this really, really high down payment that I have to come up with for this quote unquote affordable, home, because they require, in my opinion, very extreme financial requirements. So most co-ops, and when I say most, that's pretty much all of them, you need to put down a minimum of 20% down payment. Some co-ops ask for 25, some ask for 50%, some are 100% cash, right? Which is, again, ridiculous. So because of that high down payment requirement and the cost also being, it's all relative, right? Because when someone says, oh, more affordable pricing in New York City, you're like, that's still really expensive because New York City is so expensive, right? Like a single family home at a minimum, you need like 1.5 million and above. And that's probably a property that you'll need to gut renovate. It's not even turnkey. So then when you think about that price point and you're thinking, oh, more affordable, you're like, oh, more affordable might be like 600,000. It's still a really high number. So like the range that I'm looking in is more like 450 to 550. So even if we take, let's say we go with $500,000, which is about average, which is still a lot of money for an apartment, right? That you're buying, as shares, right? Like 500,000 in most places can actually get you like a true single family home with a backyard, basement, front yard, like an actual home. But in New York City, that's only going to get you like a one bedroom, or like a two bedroom, again, small. You don't actually own any like land or anything like that. But they want you to have this really high down payment. Then they want you to have like 2 years of cash reserves to like pay for the cost of the co-op. Then you have to pay your closing costs on top of that. Now, granted, they're lower than, let's say, a condo or a single family home, but still you're paying closing costs plus the cost of inspection, plus the cost of, most likely you'll need to renovate the place because the apartments are not like turnkey. Like they're not places that people like updated and things like that. Like 95% of them, you'll want to do some sort of cosmetic upgrade, right? So now that's more money. So it's, in my opinion, even though, people like to say, oh, it's more affordable, it's actually not really affordable. You need to save a lot of money you need to have a lot of money to even consider buying it. So it's taken me a while to get here because I'm doing everything by myself. I think a lot of people are not transparent in terms of how they're buying properties, especially in really expensive areas like New York City. I think a lot of people are getting help from their parents and family in terms of coming up with down payments and things like that, and are not being transparent. I know that's like private and everyone doesn't need to disclose that, but I think more transparency really goes a long way, because instead of someone feeling that they're a failure, they're not able to come up with this money, if people are transparent and saying like, oh, I wasn't able to come up with the money either, it's because of my parents, right? Like it was sort of like help balance people's expectations in terms of like what's realistic. So as you can see on here, I'm very big on transparency. So this $103,000, this is 10 years of saving. I am 40 years old. I am not 30. So it's taken me a really, really long time to get to this point because, again, I've done everything 100% on my own. So, as they say, better late than never, right? You can't dwell on your past, you can't dwell on your struggles, you just have to move forward. So, that's what I'm doing right now. So, that was another little rant, but just wanted to give just more background on co-ops and just my personal opinion on them. And again, they're not affordable in my opinion. But as I think about the next 10 years of my life, okay, when you're 50, do you really want to be renting in New York City? And for me, the strong answer was no. No, if I can avoid it, right? Because New York City is so expensive. So I don't want to act like, oh, it's like so easy to, like, again, without help or maybe without a spouse. It's not easy to save up this amount of money. So yes, that's where I am. So stay tuned. Again, I'm going to document the entire co-op buying journey, the ups, the downs, and all of the in-betweens. I'm going to post videos of properties, things like that. So that's where we are. And right now, I don't have any money to deposit for next week. At a minimum, I'll put in $25, but this is where we are, $103,400. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.